Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of May 31st through June 6th of 2021. All right, so this week we're essentially still in the eclipse cycle. We did have that lunar eclipse last week, so it is great to be implementing things and challenging ourselves to implement things from any insights or shifts that happened last week. Now this week we do have quite a bit going on, concentrated about the center, the middle part of the week. We do have Venus changing signs from Taurus into Gemini, so we could be starting to value maybe some information and knowledge and communication in those relationships as well. And Mars leaving this constellation where we've had some directness with information and communication, but now going into more protective and emotional Cancer. So good to create that protective environment and put motivation and drive into the things that are more personally meaningful to us. Now around Thursday, we do have the Sun trining Saturn and Venus trining Jupiter, so some good grounded and expansive energy, which is a nice balance there. And then over the weekend, Mercury retrograde will go back over that square with Neptune, so it is a week, of course, of still redoing, rethinking things, re-editing, doing some things from the past. But around the weekend, good to be receptive, be willing to go with the flow. And any lessons we learned about these past couple weeks, I think are great to be implementing. And also around Sunday, Mars will be opposite Pluto, so some deeper energy that we can utilize towards personal empowerment. All right, so let's take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, May 31st, all the way through June 6th. All right, and as you can see here, we are using the visible sky, which is very different from mainstream astrology. The signs are different because in mainstream, they all use an even 30 degrees for all the constellations. But if you do look up at the visible sky, you'll see there are different sizes, and there's also different constellations as well. So if you are new, definitely check out the link down below on True Sidereal Astrology. All right, so let's do a bit of a recap in terms of where everything is coming into this week. Again, we are in this eclipse cycle. The sun will be passing over the north node here this early part of the week. And so it's a very karmic week. It's still a good week of resolving things from the past, maybe some things coming up from the past that we're resolving. It's been a south node lunar eclipse from last week, so it's been more yin energy. It's been a good time of being and seeing what comes up and what awarenesses we've shifted with since last week. And so now this week, though, we start to get into more of the action phase. We'll be in the third quarter phase of the lunar cycle, which is where the sun and moon start to square each other. And so this makes it very good for action. Now, it's not as challenging as the first quarter, so we're quite seasoned in this cycle. We've been in this cycle for quite some time now, and so it is easier, and we're usually more willing to put in that work or take those actions. So really good to see. Is there anything that came to your awareness from last week? Any shifts of perspectives that we can challenge ourselves to implement this week? It can be fantastic. Now, in terms of where everything's placed this week, right at the beginning of the week, we still have a lot of concentration in Taurus. The sun is here, of course. Mercury is retrograde through here, and Venus is finishing up this constellation. So it's still a great time of being aware of how we can have more grounding energy in our lives, take things one step at a time, stop and smell the roses, and enjoy the natural world, abundance and beauty and aesthetics and resources. And so Mercury retrograde this week is still about, as it was the later part of last week, to rework some of this stuff, rethink some things like what is it that we value, what is it we enjoy in life, maybe even involving resources or matters of self-reliance or inner self-worth. And so these things that deal with inner and outer values, inner and outer resources, right? Great to be focused on with the sun, but also start to rethink or continue to rethink and rework here with that Mercury retrograde. All right, and Mars finishing up Gemini, we'll talk more about. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the aspects that we have going on this week, a lot of which is concentrated around the middle part of the week. But coming into Monday, we'll still have this Mars trining Neptune, which is a bit of a supportive element from last Sunday. And this is where fiery Mars, which is our assertive side, is in good harmony with spiritual Neptune, our more receptive side. So probably a little bit easier to go with the flow, a little bit more aligned with our ideals and soul satisfactions. Usually whatever we're taking action towards or doing on a day-to-day basis with Mars seems to be synced up with the ebb and flows of life and with the present moment usually too. So it's just a little bit of support for that. It's available, and I think it's a great way of coming into the week. Is a little bit of that easygoing, receptive kind of energy. And the moon will be finishing Capricorn here on Monday as well. So any types of responsibilities we want to take care of around Monday, as it was Sunday as well, I think is great coming into this week. Now, once we do get to the Tuesday time, the moon will shift into Aquarius for both Tuesday and Wednesday. And so this will be great for a bit of visionary energy, thinking about the future, whether it's about our own future aspirations or collective ones. I think are great here around Tuesday. But once we do get to the Wednesday, this is where the concentration of energy starts to shift. I think it's going to probably start to shift around Tuesday, but yeah, definitely by Wednesday. And so this is going to be two planets, both yin and yang, Venus and Mars, changing signs at the same time, roughly the same time. And so Venus is going to be leaving that grounding Taurus and enter more practical Gemini, which is about enjoying some learning, some communication. There's already been some fire behind that with Mars now leaving Gemini, which has been more direct and more assertive probably with communication and maybe wanting to gain information. And so I think it's still that theme of Gemini, but the context shifts. I think the shift is that we're going to start to probably feel less of that fire behind the mind, fire behind the communication, and a little bit more of that receptive Venus, seeing the value of it, enjoying it, maybe connecting this way in our relationships, sharing ideas, learning, picking up that book, doing some writing. All of that practical mental stuff can be quite enjoyable when Venus is here. Now, Mars is going to be going into more protective Cancer, and so when we are asserting ourselves and taking action, we're probably going to do so in a more protective sort of way. This could be creating a protective environment for ourselves and also for others as well, of course. So a bit of that nurturing, caring, and protective energy. So Cancer reminds us, what's important to us on a soul level, on an emotional level, and it really helps us connect to our bodies and our roots and our past. So we don't feel it that strongly as if it was the sun, but Mars here does emphasize that. And so as we go through the week, I think we'll notice a little bit more of that emotional attunement to what's important to us, and whatever it is we're taking action towards, I think it's great to do so in that way, in a way that is attuned to our emotions, is important to our intrinsic values, like maybe home, family, or the past. And putting energy towards these more personal life things and emotional things, and that, again, things we want to care for or protect, I think is fantastic with that Mars. So lots of shifts here around the middle part of the week in terms of what we value and how we're taking action and what motivates us. And again, just continuing to reevaluate things as well with that Mercury retrograde in Taurus. And we do have a minor aspect around Wednesday. The sun will be sextiling Chiron, nothing major, but if there is anything that involves healing, it could be an opening for that around Wednesday. All right, and then once we get to Thursday, then we have the concentration of two aspects. We have Sun trining grounding Saturn and Venus trining expansive Jupiter. So it is this also dual kind of energy here. Saturn is contraction, Jupiter is expansion. So I think around this Thursday time period, it can be a great day for responsibilities and putting in work and time into things, but also expanding our horizons, both mentally and literally, with Venus trine Jupiter. So nice support with Saturn, grounded, responsible. Venus trine Jupiter, maybe enjoying some of the more free-spirited stuff in life, maybe some of the abstract things like spirituality or astrology, or a bit of adventure, and maybe even in those one-on-one connections with Venus as well. All right, and as a backdrop, nothing major, but as a backdrop here around the Thursday time period, the moon will go into Pisces. And so this whole time from Thursday for pretty much the whole rest of the week up until Sunday, the moon will be in this very watery constellation. So it is a good weekend, and we'll talk more about it with Mercury as well, but it is a good weekend for more receptivity over the weekend, maybe turning a little bit more inward, getting some alone time, some space, maybe some spiritual activities. Now it is still in this action phase of the cycle, but we will start to be ending the cycle the further we get into the weekend. And as we get into early next week, we'll be entering the balsamic phase, the ending phase of the lunar cycle, and then gearing up for what will be a fresh new beginning with the solar eclipse next week. So it might come a bit early, that more dying down energy, or at least the importance of inward energy, this later part of this week with the moon in Pisces. All right, and this is double emphasized because once we do get to closer to Saturday, Mercury retrograde will pass over the square to Neptune once again. So this happened about a week or two ago, and we'll just say that the last couple weeks, it's been very good for incorporating a little bit more of that receptive approach to life. Surrendering what's outside of our control. Sometimes with Mercury square Neptune, can create uncertainty because Mercury is our mind and Neptune is the unknown and the spiritual, the ethers. And so it is usually, good to be as receptive as possible. Surrender what's outside of our control, have a bit of faith and trust. And constructively, I think it's great to experiment with Mercury retrograde. All things spiritual, all things creative, all things intuitive, all things imaginative, right? All that watery, etheric stuff. Great to be experimenting with, especially this weekend with Mercury square Neptune while he's retrograde. And so there's a lot to learn about this deeper emotional, spiritual stuff and how we can bring in a little bit more peace and receptivity into our lives. So it could be a very nice step in the right direction with that. Now, also around the Saturday time period, Mars will be opposite up to Pluto. So these are two very powerful planets in opposition. So it will be important to find some balance. There might be some intense energy coming up, some deep energy of some things that maybe we're afraid of, or some fears or some past patterns coming up from the past to bring conscious awareness to and to maybe resolve. And so very good to essentially dive deep with ourselves. What are our deepest desires, deeper needs? Be aware of those, and then to perhaps take action towards them in a way that is conscious and balanced, right? So, with these deep needs, there can be that attachment, there can be that control, there can be that sort of also on the other end of the extreme, maybe avoidance or just afraid of it. But the deeper we go with this, the more we accept and embrace what our deepest values are, and then take healthy action towards those desires. This can be a very empowering weekend, in fact. And so this could be some nice shifts in the right direction, especially in the context of anything from about a year ago when we last had the start of this cycle when Mars conjoined Pluto. Anything that is empowering, anything that is transformative, that involves taking action towards some deep desires that we know might involve facing some fears, maybe even some wounds, some deep things, can be very empowering, right? And non-attachment can help us do that, allowing for the death, quote unquote, of what we want, right? Allowing for not having what we want can help facilitate the process, because when we have nothing to lose, when we're more non-attached to what we want, then we're willing to face those fears and make those changes. So it could be a nice empowering weekend there while we again incorporate some of that receptivity. All right, and then the weekends on Sunday with the moon shifting into Aries, so going into next week, again, it will be the ending phase of the cycle, so the energies are starting to die down, but Aries is about taking initiative, and so the later part of Sunday, we may notice maybe some themes around that. Taking some initiative in our life, a bit of fire, some directness, basically the energy that we had in the lunar cycle. A whole cycle before this, closing things out and finalizing things as we gear up for that fresh new life path, new beginning with the solar eclipse next week. All right, everyone, so that's the week in a nutshell. Put simply, it is a week of shifts and changes around the Wednesday time period in terms of what we valuing more of the information, learning, communication, and also a shift of motivation, being more motivated towards what's important emotionally and in our intrinsic values, and again, creating that protective environment for ourselves and those that are close to us emotionally. This middle part of the week will be that third quarter phase, so it's a good action week, good to challenge yourself from any shifts that happened last week. We do have some supportive energy around midweek with both patience and expansion, some grounding and expansion energy with these two Saturn and Jupiter aspects. And then over the weekend, we do have some of this bit of challenging energy of bringing in more receptivity with Neptune and personal empowerment with Mars opposite Pluto. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click that like button if you haven't yet. If you're new to the channel, subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll see you all next week for the next weekly forecast. Take care.